And we're live. Thank you so much. Good morning. It is now 10:04 a.m. I will call the Sewage and Water Board Governance Committee meeting to order. Special Counsel Grinstead, please call the roll.
Director Duplessis,
Present.
Director Barnes,
Present.
Director Sloss, Director Howard,
Here.
Director Guzman.
Here.
Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. According to our agenda, we next have a presentation update on the general superintendent search. Um, so
You can do that one.
And I'm happy to
Or Guzman.
share thoughts after you or whatever you'd like.
you can get started. My breath's still
Okay,
running
good,
upstairs.
good, good. So, under the guidance, this is a little bit louder than usual. Under the guidance of Director Duplessis and collaboration with the mayor and Pocos Las being the president pro tem, they're spearheading the actual search in collaboration with a consultant firm that we've hired, Raftelis, who's helping us do a national-wide search for the GSO. Just to kind of take the elephant out of the room, Ron and I and many others have had the conversation of him being the interim for as long as he has, and whether there's consideration for him to continue in a more permanent, I guess, scenario. And he opted to continue to be the interim until we find a GSO. So just wanted to make sure that Ron was considered and he wanted to stay where he is with an imminent, maybe not as imminent, but with a very well-designed departure date for himself. So just wanted to put that out there. We are hopeful, obviously, to generate a lot of interest. This is a tough market. A lot of people are exiting the water space, and so it's going to be very difficult to find good skilled people with a lot of experience. But we're hoping that we've made adjustments in terms of salary and some other requirements, and we're hoping that we made the position more attractive. So we're very hopeful, and there's an actual schedule that's set up, and it's predominantly later in October where we would meet with potential candidates. We meaning Dr. Duplessis, Director Sloss, and myself, and maybe a couple other people, with ultimately the mayor weighing in on our choice. So
I wanted to make sure that we provided this body with an updated timeline. Starting October 12th, it is slated to open again, and it's going to be open until filled. And during that time, we will begin to review, not we, the consultant with Raftelis will begin to review applications as they come in. On October 19th, we're going to have a formal candidate review from the top individuals that they've selected. Those who've met the basic qualifications, they'll be moved over to us at that point. During that candidate review, we'll be looking at the overall applications themselves. There's a select group of individuals who will be involved in that process, including members of the Sewage and Water Board themselves, Executive Director, the Chief Administrative Officer, Dave Callahan, and others will convene groups via Zoom as we do that, and we're looking forward to full board participation as we go forward there. We're going to narrow that list down to a list of semi-finalists. We'll be doing virtual interviews at that stage. And then hopefully by November 3rd, we'll have some top candidates and we'll begin the background and references check. So our goal is to have finalist interviews in person around November 20th and November 21st. And we'll proceed with offers after that point.
Question?
Yes.
Two questions, actually. It looks like it's only open for a week if we're going from October 12th to October 19th. Is that enough time?
We're going to leave it open until filled, but as this has been out already, we are absolutely anticipating some of those same individuals may be reapplying, and the interest is already out there. So it won't just be open that week. We're anticipating an influx of applications at the very beginning of it opening, but of course, we will adjust timelines as needed. It is not hard set in stone, but this is our ideal situation in terms of timelines.
Okay. The second question is, I know there's a salary adjustment, but the first group of candidates that came in did not result in anything. So what are we offering now, or what do we think is going on that will make the job
More attractive.
more attractive?
That's exactly what we did. We went in and we increased the salary range, and we actually made some revisions to the actual search criteria, the job description. We made sure that it was updated with some up-to-date terms that would make it a little bit more attractive. So we did some work there as well upon the re-release of the job opening.
And the board, I mean, one of the problems the last time was the board kind of got notice like a day ahead of time that we could come interview. And so I'm hoping that because this is a board position. Obviously, if the board is filling the position, we rely heavily on Ghassan and Ron and his team for, who's qualified, what works. So I'm hoping that the board, when it gets involved and has the interview process of finalists or whatever is conceived, will have plenty of notice so we can actually participate.
So not only will you have plenty of notice moving forward through this process, but multiple opportunities for interaction with the candidates and the information going forward. The mayor's been heavily involved in helping us formulate what that looks like, along with the Raptalis consultant, Ms. Pamela Wyndham. So we're looking for opportunities to not only have our board intimately involved, but members of the business community as well. So this process is going to look very different from the previous process. Yes, ma'am.
Can we get a timetable, a copy of it?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, and I think if you haven't heard already, you will be reached out to individually to gain your perspective on what we should be looking for, and then again, you will be given the fact that this is a totally different approach, you will be given ample notice in terms of involvement and being part of
Thank you.
the process.
You may have mentioned this. Is this a national search?
Yes,
Okay. And where is it being advertised?
at a variety of venues, whether it's LinkedIn, Indeed, and a lot of engineering publications.
WEF also.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I
Water
mean,
Alliance and
We're
stuff.
doing our own,
Outreach.
outreach as well, so it's out there. Yeah.
Just from my experience at Gianna Wink is that sometimes interest also is related to spouse and family. And the extent to which we uncovered that early on to see if, so for example, Gianna Wink would work with prospective prospects for companies that we're locating here, and sometimes help the spouse find a job, sort of the trailing spouse situation, help people understand the education options for kids, housing, stuff like that. So I just wonder if NOLA BA or Gianna Wink might be helpful with like final candidates with providing some of
Oh,
that
absolutely.
support.
It's fantastic.
Because it's sort of a promoting New Orleans, and
Yeah.
also people have preconceived notions about New Orleans,
Yeah.
and sometimes it'll be like the spouse that shuts things down because of that. And so if we can and that might also be a role that we can play, is
Yeah.
kind of work around some of those issues as they come up.
I think that's an excellent idea. Oftentimes people aren't traveling alone, and if they have families that we need to be considerate of, I think that's a great way to insert Gina Wink into this process, and we had not thought about it before.
Be
Yeah,
happy to know
along
that I
those
volunteered
lines.
them.
And this is a very operational comment, but what I've seen happen is that if you get candidates if you're pulling from a national search, you do like a Zoom interview or virtual interview, and then your final candidates, you bring them here. And the advice is always, like Robin said, to bring the spouse and family to do a tour around the neighborhood, show them some houses, the schools, and some opportunities to lure them into the city.
That's an excellent idea, especially as we get to that
Final round.
the final round. I think it has absolute
Mhm.
value. I did want to make sure that I mentioned, we talked about national searches, that I ran down a list of places where the information will be advertised. This is not the full list, I won't bore you with that, but it's International City, County Management Association, the American Society for Public Administrations, the Engaging Local Government Leaders Journal, of course, LinkedIn, all of those, the Local Government Hispanic Network, the American Associations for Blacks in Engineering, American Society for Civil Engineers, WEF, AWWA, the Army Corps of Engineers, National Society for Hispanic Engineers, National Organization for Engineers, UNO Alumni Association, Southern University Alumni Association, North Carolina A&T, Alumni Association, Florida A&M, Tulane, MPA. So there's an exhaustive list, and I'll make sure that each board member gets that copy.
Was U.S. Water Alliance on that?
U.S. Water Alliance, let's see.
We happen to know someone there.
It is not on this.
We should
list.
add it.
We should add it, yes.
Is there a drainage association like there is water?
Not really, no. You don't see that. It's typically under a municipality or Department of Public Works.
What about engineering schools at a postgraduate level?
There are some alumni associations on this
Okay.
list, and they do have engineering,
Mhm.
PhDs and master's programs here. Are there any other questions? All right. Back to our agenda. So our next presentation item is a proposed plumbing conference committee member change. Our bylaws, Article 6, Section 10. Who will be leading that discussion?
Yes, so we'll handle that with
Thank you.
Deputy Special Counsel Ed Morris. Just wanted to introduce the proposed revisions to the Plumbing Conference Committee change. That committee will be changed, or the proposed changes will be due to the fact that we have reorganized, the board has reorganized the plumbing department. That department is no longer under the general superintendent. It is now under the chief customer service person. And then also we have, plumbing has evolved, right? And so now we have environmental matters that are under the plumbing committee as well. So we're changing the staff has decided that perhaps we needed to increase the plumbing committee with more staff persons and less industry people, because now the plumbing committee encompasses environmental matters as well as technical plumbing matters. Ed?
Yes, good morning, members, committee members. Let me say on the front end too that I may have some technical difficulties. My hearing aids are in the repair shop, believe it or not. And so even with the feedback on the microphones, I'm kind of struggling to hear you guys. But having said that, I think the resolution 124-2023 sets forth the full explanation of why the need for the amendment to the bylaw. So if you'd bear with me, I'll just read very quickly the resolution and you'll get a sense for why the need for the amendment. Whereas Article 6 of our bylaws deal with committees of the Sewage and Water Board. Section 10 in particular deals with the Plumbing Conference Committee of the bylaws of the Sewage and Water Board. New Orleans currently provides in pertinent part. And this is what the bylaws currently say. The Plumbing Conference Committee is established by the Plumbing Code of the City of New Orleans. Matters relating to the Plumbing Code shall be brought before the Plumbing Conference Committee for consideration. This committee consists of the General Superintendent, the Superintendent of Sewage and Water Board's Plumbing Department, which we no longer have, and 7 members appointed by the President of the Board as follows. 4 members of the Sewage and Water Board appointed by the President, 1 licensed master plumber, 1 licensed journeyman plumber, and 1 member of any allied plumbing or engineering trade or profession. And there, the changes will be made. As I read further in the resolution, you will understand why. Except for the first 2 above, all shall be appointed for 2-year terms by the President of the Board. 5 members constitute a quorum. The Plumbing Conference Committee shall meet at a minimum of biannually as needed. Whereas a reconstitution of the membership of the Plumbing Conference Committee is needed to reflect the board's recent organizational changes, namely the Sewage and Water Board New Orleans Plumbing Department has been moved from the GSO to the Chief of Customer Service. And 2, whereas additionally, the existing Plumbing Conference Committee is comprised of persons from the plumbing profession to resolve appeals from plumbers granting variances, et cetera. And there has not been a need to convene the committee for these types of matters for quite some time. And whereas current issues coming before the Plumbing Conference Committee are environmental compliance issues and proposed persons, positions, the Chief of Environmental Affairs, Chief of Engineering, and the Chief of Plumbing, and the Chief of Customer Service have a better understanding of environmental regulations that Sewage and Water Board and its customers must meet. Now therefore be it resolved, Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans hereby amends Article 6, Section 10 to read as follows. The Plumbing Conference Committee shall be responsible for the application and interpretation of the rules of the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans governing usage of sewage, water, and drainage systems and plumbing, i.e. the Plumbing Code. Matters pertaining to the Plumbing Code shall be brought before the Plumbing Conference Committee for consideration. All amendments to the Plumbing Code shall be considered by the Plumbing Conference Committee and forwarded to the Sewage and Water Board for adoption. This committee consists of the General Superintendent, and here is one of the changes, the Chief of Environmental Affairs, another change, Chief of Engineering, and Chief of Plumbing, and the Chief of Customer Services, and 4 members of the Sewage and Water Board appointed by the President. Except for the first 5 above, all shall be appointed for a 2-year term by the President of the Board. 5 members shall constitute a quorum. The Plumbing Conference Committee shall meet at a minimum biannually as needed. And then we have 2 cleanup provisions. Be it further resolved, Sewage and Water Board hereby amends the 3rd paragraph of Article 6, Section 1 to read as follows. A Plumbing Conference Committee is established in accordance with these bylaws. Before, what the bylaws said was that the Plumbing Conference Committee would be established by the Plumbing Code. So that was changed to reflect the changes being in accordance with the bylaws. Be it further resolved that Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans hereby amends the 2nd paragraph of Article 6, Section 2 to read as follows. Each committee, except for the Plumbing Conference Committee, shall consist of 5 members of the board to be appointed by the President. 3 members of any standing committee shall constitute a quorum. And there, that cleanup provision was really to basically demonstrate that the Plumbing Conference Committee varies and is different from the ordinary 6 standing committees of the board. So with that, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, I certainly will try to address those.
Director Howard?
Yeah, I am a little ignorant and confused by what the Plumbing Committee does. It adopts and amends the Plumbing Code, is that
Correct.
correct? Which is, we do that instead of the city, I gather. Okay.
Yes.
Then we apply and interpret the rules. And I know there haven't been any hearings or appeals within a period of time, but is that still something that that committee has to deal with if they come up?
Yes.
And we also have an environmental affairs administrative hearing process, which now the environmental affairs person, Chief of Environmental Affairs, Ann Wilson. So it is either can become before the Plumbing Committee Conference, relative to plumbers, if plumbers have appeals relative to them getting permits, that will become before this particular Plumbing Conference Committee.
Okay, so as a board member, I would feel totally unqualified to be on this committee. And so I'm kind of wondering why it's a board committee to begin with, or if it is, why we're getting rid of what appears to be expertise and keeping the board members who have no expertise. That's my guess.
So we're keeping the board members because policy is also set at the board level. That's why we're keeping the board members. Also, the plumbing expertise coming from the Chief of Engineering, the General Superintendent, would all be able to basically recommend and advise the board members who sit on the committee.
Mhm.
Also, the Environmental Affairs, the Chief of Environmental Affairs, also sits on the committee. That's why we added Environmental Affairs, Ann Wilson, to the committee, because fees also come before this committee. How fees are set, and that policy is also set in this committee, permitting fees.
But wouldn't that need to be authorized by the board ultimately?
Will come through the
And
committee,
finance
right.
committee?
It would come from the, it would come from the, it would, the,
Not necessarily
the
from
proposal, you're not, finance, right. It would, the proposal will come through the plumbing committee and then would lead to the board, just like the rest of our recommendations. It would start in the committee and then proceed to the board. It would first come to the committee for review and approval. That's where the work is done. And then based upon the recommendation of the board, the committee, then it will proceed to the board. So similarly, like when the pension committee is made up of board members as well as employee members.
Mhm.
And the expertise basically comes from our consultants and staff. Those recommendations are done at the committee meeting, the committee level, and then proceed to the board level.
Just so that we understand the expertise of this committee, can you just make sure, or just go over those chief positions that are on there again, and who are in those positions?
General Superintendent, that's Ron Spooner. Chief of Environmental Affairs, that's Ann Wilson. Renee Gonzalez, Chief of Customer Service, and the Chief of Engineering, Mr. Nader.
Yeah, the chief of engineering is currently vacant now, but
Oh, okay.
it can be filled by myself or the deputy general superintendent.
Okay, right.
That's the current status.
No, that's the
That's the
proposed, the
proposed.
proposed. The current status has a number of plumbing people, so it's a master plumber, journeyman plumber. But because of the fact that this particular committee in plumbing and what plumbing encompasses now has changed over the years, because the consent decree involves environmental matters. So that's why we included the environmental chief. It also requires technical expertise, because oftentimes when plumbers are getting their permits, they also have to go to the general superintendent's office, the chief of engineering, to also get permits. So the plumbing committee encompasses various departments, such as engineering, customer service, because now plumbing is under the chief of customer service. So we felt it was important that because it becomes under that department, we needed to include that chief.
Who is the current chief of plumbing?
That is Mike Evans.
Mhm.
But Mike Evans, the chief of plumbing, actually reports to the chief of customer service, Renee Gonzalez. So it was important to have Renee Gonzalez, the chief of customer service, on this committee as well, because now that department reports to chief of customer service.
And if we had, we were amending the code in any way, we would obviously be going out to some kind of master plumbers and things for advice, right? We wouldn't, the people are being stricken, we could still consult with.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
fact, we had the backflow preventer
Yeah.
program,
Mhm.
which came through plumbing. We actually consulted and actually put that out, and a consultant actually stood up that program. But now that program is run by the chief of environmental affairs, Ann Wilson.
And then Yolanda, I have one question. It's kind of this may sound like a legal nit, but there's a reason I'm proposing.
Mhm.
My understanding is we could actually be saying there shall now be 6 standing committees, and put the plumbing up in the first paragraph, because it was broken out before because it was done in accordance with the plumbing code.
Correct.
And the only reason I'm suggesting doing that and striking that paragraph
Mhm.
entirely is because someday down the road, someone wonders why it's
Right.
broken out separately.
Okay, we could do that. We could put it under six standing committees. So let's make that change.
I mean, it sounds silly, but I'm the kind of person that says, why did they do that?
Right. So yes, that's a good
Yeah.
recommendation and suggestion. And now we wanted to make sure that the authority to create this committee and change this committee remained with the board via the bylaws. And that would be in compliance with that. Any more questions? All right.
All right, thank you. So we move on to the next item on our agenda. It's actually the action item associated with this. May I have a motion to approve? Resolution 124, 2023, authorization to amend Sewage and Water Board bylaws, Article 6, Section 10, to change the membership of the Plumbing Conference Committee.
So moved.
Moved by Director Barnes,
Second.
seconded by Director Guzman. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I think we need to do the,
As amended, we could.
Oh,
we could-
amendment to the-
Motion as amended.
yeah, as amended, because this just starts out with the membership here without addressing the changes in the front of it.
In the second page, it does the other changes, second page of the resolution, but we don't have your particular change.
Okay,
But we can approve pending
yeah,
the
yeah.
changing.
Yeah.
This
And
first,
suggested
yeah.
by
So the
Director
first page
Howard.
has-
So
it is-
I'm proposing an amendment to whatever we're sending to the board. I don't know how that,
We can, this could be a motion as amended
okay.
by Directors
Okay.
Howard.
Howard.
All right.
Is that what we're doing?
Is that what we say? So-
Yes, you can restate it.
All right,
Okay.
so may I have a motion to approve Resolution 124, 2023 with amendments as suggested by Director Howard?
So moved.
And second.
All right, still moved by Director Barnes, seconded by Director Guzman. Any additional discussion? All right, any public comments?
No.
All right, with none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Next on our agenda, we have, any public comment for the committee as a whole? None. So if there are no other matters, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Howard, seconded by Director Barnes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.